What's going on YouTube? Hayden back making another brand new Crypto TV episode. In today's video, I want to spend quite a bit of time discussing the possibilities of what could be coming at the end of the 2019 bear market and what we could start to see within the XRP and Bitcoin patterns. As we know, we've been in a major descending consolidation pattern for quite some time now, and I really want to go into specifics as what we could be expecting to see whether or not a breakout does actually come within XRP and whether or not we see more retracement within Bitcoin. Otherwise, we will be discussing more into the current coin market cap, things like that. If you're new to the channel, definitely make sure to subscribe, turn on post notifications, leave a giant thumbs up. Otherwise, let's jump into today's episode. So I want to spend quite a bit of time discussing not only the XRP pattern that has been forming on the daily charts, but also this interesting Bitcoin chart that we've been talking about for quite some time now. So one thing that I wanted to discuss with you is we've been paying very close attention to merely on Bitcoin, the short-term look and approach at things. Basically, ever since I'd say the beginning of 2019, we've been looking at this coin, but we haven't really taken a step back and compared it to what we've seen previously. So I want to spend quite a bit of time discussing that as well on today's episode, and also discussing the patterns that could be happening on XRP. So I know a lot of you are gonna, kind of disagree or possibly agree with this in comparing XRP to Bitcoin, but I like to use other altcoins to kind of decipher where we could be potentially seeing breakouts. We know that back in, I believe it was January of 2018, we saw that massive rally that you can see right here. Towards the end of 2017 into the beginning of 2018, we saw the big breakout. And you can see that same thing happened within Bitcoin, where at the end of 2017 into 2018, we saw the same breakout happen within Bitcoin. So you can see for the most part, correlation kind of happens between Bitcoin and XRP. And that's why I kind of want to spend quite a bit of time discussing the pattern within Bitcoin and then comparing it to XRP. Now notice a couple of things as well. As you'll notice on the top 10 cryptos, majority of them are mimicking themselves. When you look at Bitcoin, you're noticing that Bitcoin's price graph looks awfully a lot like XRP's price graph in reflection to the same patterns that are happening, the same dip that we're seeing. So you can see for the most part, they do kind of react the same. You can see that Bitcoin is down 2.5%, around the same thing as XRP is, and pretty much the whole market is reacting the same way as Bitcoin is. So that's another thing to take into consideration. So here's what I wanted to discuss with you, and something that I haven't noticed before, but you can see, as we know, we've had previous breakouts in the past or breakdowns in the past on Bitcoin, and I'm starting to notice that we're kind of reflecting and seeing the same pattern happening within Bitcoin right now. So what's interesting to consider is when we draw kind of what we're seeing right now on the charts, you can see we do have a downtrend for the most part. Even if we shorten this by just a little bit, you can see for the most part there is some sort of channel as well as there is some sort of support. And what really captured my attention was when you added this line in right here, something that I didn't realize at first, but we compare previous history to what we're seeing right now, and you can see they're for the most part very similar. And this is something that really caught my attention. You can see this one isn't as accurate right here. I'm sure we can extend this down just ever so slightly to get a more accurate representation, but for the most part we are seeing a very similar movement within the coins. You can see both supports are right here, both supports are right there, and then we have the same descending fractals forming right here with a top resistance that ultimately end in a point of breakout, either to a correction to the downside or a correction to the upside. So here's what I wanted to reference. Originally, in the beginning of my videos come a couple of weeks ago, we were mentioning that we are seeing some sort of symmetrical triangle that ultimately ended in a break to that could end in a break to the upside, whether or not a break to the downside. But what I didn't realize is that I didn't look at previous history. And you're noticing based on previous history, when we actually started the uptrend back in April of 2017, we eventually, went away from the movement, and then we came back down gradually to the support right here. You're noticing the same thing is happening. We gradually went away and then we pulled back down. And we can even add in some supports to kind of figure out what exactly it is that we saw. So you can see right here, if I pull on the date range, we had about this much movement before we kind of, separated, about 83 bars. You can see it's a little bit less right here, but it's seemingly very similar. About the same thing right here, 67 bars, we have 87, and then we start to take off with very similar movements and very similar patterns based off previous history. You can see right here, I can probably take the same exact chart and just make it a little bit smaller, and you can see we have the very same pattern that would probably continue moving into the future. So if we just go to the bars pattern and we start right around here and we drag this on, I want to say right about here, you can see that we have the same freaking pattern. And that's what I find quite interesting with this coin. So that's why I think the history will repeat itself and we will continue to see the same pattern happen, just on a smaller scale. If I literally just grasp this over here and I shorten this ever so slightly down, you can see we're seeing a fairly similar pattern, just like this. Bam. So look at what's going to happen. All I did was take our previous, breakout from 2017 to 2018. We had a year's breakout and retracement, and all I did was move that on top of where we're seeing retracement right now. And look at how exactly, almost identical in pattern that we're starting to see. And that's why I think this is very interesting and very intriguing. You can see we have the same resistance upwards, the same break and correction upwards, the same retestment on the bottom. We then see the separation upwards. We see the same thing again, an even bigger break to the upside, retracement lower. We have the same pattern. This is merely the same thing. We have the same dip downwards, the same dip downwards. We break up, we fall back down, we fall back down. We had a spike upwards based in 2017. We had the same thing happen 2017, 2018 right here. We correct lower, break up. Exact same thing that happened here, consolidated smaller, and now we're seeing the sideways movement. This is almost identical, and that's why I think this is almost a breakthrough theory that nobody's realized. And you can see the retracement downwards is pretty much happening at almost the same exact time period. And that's why I find this so intriguing and almost identical in regards to perspective, and I think that's something that we have to pay close attention to. So if we continue to relay this pattern, which is almost identical, we can understand that there's probably going to be some sort of smaller retracement to the downside, and I think this is going to be huge for the market too, guys. In regards to the fact that we finally learned how to short cryptocurrency, we're honestly going to be anticipating, or I am anticipating potentially, a retracement in price, some sort of dip down to the downside, about a 30% or 35% drop. Also, what's quite interesting is if you've used TradingView, I think they just completely upgraded their website with these. The trend analysis are all different, and the colors on the charts are all different. Something interesting to pay attention to. But I do anticipate a 35% drop, very similar in regards to price, probably back down to around $5,000 or $5,500. This is going to be extremely interesting, but in the fact that these both correlate so freaking well with each other in regards to previous history repeating itself, I am anticipating to see a very steep retracement lower, and that's why I want to say everybody should be signing up to DueDEX. It's the first link in the description. Basically, this website is allowing you guys to short Bitcoin. You can actually short Bitcoin right here. You can literally place a sell order and short the coin, and obviously the second this breaks to the downside too, I will be doing the same exact thing. Also consider, for those of you that haven't signed up, that I do have a Patreon, which I will be updating the second I buy in and the second I sell. It is obviously a lot quicker than buying and waiting on my YouTube videos to happen. You can actually get updated much sooner in regards to plays and patterns that I'm seeing that I don't actually put out on YouTube. So definitely check that out. That's the second link in the description. But in regards to this correlation being almost freaking identical, it's without a doubt very possible that we're going to see a breakdown to the downside within around 35%. So in regards to how this could be affecting XRP Ripple, well, we know that history likes to repeat itself. So with that knowledge, let's take what we've just learned with Bitcoin and then apply the same algorithm to XRP here. So we take the bars pattern and we are going to extend this right now all the way to where we currently are. We have it right here, and then I'm just going to move this over. You can see just like that. We're going to put this pretty much to the bottom of the breakout, and I'm going to extend this a little bit smaller because personally I do think we're looking for a much smaller break, something along the lines of this. Maybe that right there. So that's merely what I'm looking for. You can see we have major uptrends and they fall into smaller spikes, eventually consolidating back down into one bigger descending triangle. And then we look for a break to the upside, which is exactly what we're seeing here. So you can see on Bitcoin, we use the same pattern off of previous retracement to the downside, break in the descending triangle or the symmetrical triangle, whatever you want to call it, inevitably broke bearish. We're seeing that same pattern reflect on Bitcoin, which you can see is freaking identical to a point. Like, history is extremely repeating itself. It's very odd to see that within Bitcoin. But now with XRP, we're honestly anticipating to see the same thing. It's going to be very interesting to see whether or not Bitcoin decides to break lower, while XRP might be breaking to the upside. We are seeing that consolidation smaller and smaller with a for sure strong support right here. You'll also notice what's different with Bitcoin is in the fact that Bitcoin has had a big leap, and then we've seen another big leap as we consolidated smaller. XRP has seen one big leap, and then we've seen just immediate retracement lower and lower and lower, unlike Bitcoin has. So we'd ultimately be anticipating to see this sort of rally and run to the upside. Just using Fibonacci retracement right here, we can see about where is it right here? Using the Fibonacci retracement, we get about I like to use it like this, and then we can extend this over to where we currently are right here. So I'd anticipate the rally to come about this high, this being probably the point, a little FOMO buying in, but this being the most resistance we could probably see, around $1 and change ultimately. But I don't think we're going to be going much higher than that in the short term. As you know, we see coins getting released from escrow and things like that. We could be anticipating to see the price potentially move up to higher levels, but ultimately this is where I am anticipating the coin to move. But in regards to getting ready to be buying into XRP, I would wait until we end at about January to March of 2020. And as for Bitcoin, which seemingly comes to an end right around the end of December, which is in pretty much this month, this is going to be massive, guys, and I'm anticipating to see a major short on the coin right here, a major short and a major dump. This is almost identical in price. Very odd, very interesting. Definitely check that out. Otherwise, if you guys are new to the channel, definitely make sure to subscribe, turn on post notifications, leave a giant thumbs up, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Peace.